Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Conscious Living 101 podcast with the Lyric Twins. My name is Cheryl, and this is my twin sister, Christine. And we're here to talk to you about all things to do with spiritual awakening, conscious living, and the end game of enlightenment. So what we're wanting to do for you is to offer you some information that we never had when we had our spiritual awakening. We both awakened a couple of decades ago when we were just in our late teen years.
Maybe three decades.
3 decades. Don't tell them how
Oh wait,
old
no,
we are.
we're only 20.
Yeah, that's right.
not
We're
possible.
20. Which is actually happens when you have your spiritual awakenings. You actually get younger.
Yeah, you do look younger.
I'm only half kidding, but we'll get into that in later podcasts. So today we're going to be talking about the signs of spiritual awakening and give you some stories, personal stories from both of us about how we experienced our spiritual awakening. So the first thing that we want to talk about is the signs of spiritual awakening. And it's important.
How about what is spiritual awakening first?
What is spiritual
and then the
awakening?
signs, yeah.
Yeah. So spiritual awakening, for me as a definition, is just a moment in your life where you have this understanding that you're more than you are, right?
Like as more than Cheryl, like the
Right.
human Cheryl, like more than your ego,
Yeah.
that you're more of like a divine higher self, like you're beyond just the human self, but you start to connect with something outside of yourself, or within yourself really, but outside of yourself that is bigger than just the human self. And
So it's not, spiritual awakening is not like a moment and then all of a sudden you're spiritually awakened and everything's perfect and you have inner peace. No, that's not how it goes at all. Yeah, we don't want to scare you, but it doesn't go like that. But it is like, I can kind of look back in my life and have almost a definitive moment of when I had a spiritual awakening, but it did happen earlier on in my life. And then as I got a bit older, then I understood that I was having this awakening. But let's first talk about the signs of spiritual awakening so that you might know if you're having a spiritual awakening of your own.
right. So I will start. I would say you start to feel like there has to be more to life.
Mm-hmm,
Definitely. Like you start to look at your life and question it and notice that you've been doing a lot of kind of external searching for happiness, that it hasn't got you where you wanted to go. And so you start to think there has to be more.
Yeah. And part of that is because a lot of times when you're having a spiritual awakening, you actually feel really alone and, a bit out of place, right? So it kind of propels you to think that there's answers out there. So you start looking for them, right?
Right. And I think you also don't want to keep living life in the same stagnant way that you've been living. Like I remember really thinking, geez, I'm not happy. I'm not getting what I really want out of life. There just has to be more. And I think also around the time when we started to awaken, we also started to become really intuitive. Like you start to really be intuitive about what other people are feeling.
Yeah, remember we used to go to the mall and read people?
We did. Oh my God.
We used
For fun. That was our fun time.
Yeah, we used to play a game, but like we almost didn't realize that we were intuitive. But like as we got older, like people used to, so we'd go to the mall and people would walk by and we would just read them. Like we would say what their issues
we'd
were.
make up stories, but we would have the same story for the same person all the time. And we're like,
then as we got older, now all my friends give me all their pictures of like guys they want to date so that I can read them and tell them what their issues are.
Oh, wait. She gives me pictures of the guys she wants to date and I have to read them.
She's got to help me.
But we're pretty bang on, I must say.
We actually really are.
And
anybody can be intuitive because I've actually trained my friends to do it now too, but it just takes practice. But that is a sign.
Well, and I think too, because so many people live externally and spiritual awakening really is about going within yourself. And so it's naturally being intuitive is kind of just a natural byproduct. So it's just really about once you turn inwards to teach yourself, or like how my sister said, she teaches other people to do it, to become more intuitive. But
well, and I think that's actually part of the awakening is you actually become, like you said, more in tune. And then Another thing that we do is we actually like can not only read energy of people, but of food. Right. So
Right.
like we can tap into a food and just know instantly whether we're going to like react to it or.
Yeah, or if we pick it up and you
Yeah.
feel kind of slightly nauseated
But I
from
think
it.
it's just an opening that you have when you have
Yeah.
this awakening, is that you're more expanded and open to different things.
I
Right?
wonder too if that's why, like they say, physical symptoms, I shouldn't say they say, this has happened to us. Physical symptoms is a
Yeah.
part of spiritual awakening.
Oh yeah.
Like a lot of aches and pains, dizziness.
Yeah. Fatigue.
Yeah.
Fatigue. Like for years, we would sleep so much. Actually, our
Yeah.
older sister, like she had her awakening, and man, we slept a lot. Like she
Yeah, it
slept
is.
so much. Like we slept half our life away almost. But and it's people
Don't scare people.
Yeah, yeah. I don't want to scare you, but it does happen. You do have those physical symptoms, and like even now, like we've had our spiritual awakening over what did we say 30 years ago now?
We did,
And
at least
we
that.
still
Yeah,
have
maybe
like
more.
bizarro symptoms that we go to the doctor and are like, we're lucky we have the same doctor from when we were 16, and she's like,
She knows us. She knows our history
her
and stuff.
spiritual project. Like we've taught her a lot. She says, I learned something from you guys every time you
She
come in, because
does.
we're very in tune with ourselves.
But we're very intuitive. Like we typically catch what's the matter before
Yeah.
it even shows up on
right.
on
And
blood tests. But I also
but she also can't diagnose us.
no, she can't. But I also have to say, because I have a neck injury from a car accident, and so being almost more intuitive and in tune with your body, I think it does heighten things a little bit. Like
Very much.
because
You become more
you
sensitive.
instantly know, oh, I have a headache, and funny enough, a lot of people go through life and they're not in tune with their bodies at all. They have no clue what's going on with their own bodies. Like,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Well,
but
they
yeah.
just push through with like coffee or whatever, right?
Yeah,
But-
with coffee or booze or
Yeah.
stuff like that. But I mean, I think we should also let people know, like, spiritual awakening. Like when we started our spiritual awakening, there wasn't a lot of information out there. A lot of
No.
it was like from like the kind of new age movement, and so a lot of it was, I don't want to say airy fairy, but it
Yeah, very
wasn't
airy-fairy.
exactly what we were looking for, because we started to awaken, and so we found this new age movement, and we thought, oh, spirituality is you're supposed to be like happy and joyful and
Oh, and so peaceful.
and everything is, perfect once you have this awakening. But that's actually not the case. It's actually really hard work.
Very.
And eye-opening, and kind of like puts you into a really raw space.
It's
Like
challenging.
it is, because you really you lose your identity of who you thought you were as Christine or Cheryl, or like as your human identity, or as a mom, or a child, or your job,
Your
or
friends, or, yeah.
how much money you have. Like you really, or your relationships. Like you really,
Yeah, it really throws you off.
you start to lose your
Mind.
yes, well, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
That is a good thing.
Yeah.
But you start to lose like your identity of your more egoic self, and
Yeah.
it can be disorienting. Like it really can put you into a space of just feeling disconnected and lost from yourself, and just who you thought you were. It's almost an identity crisis in a way. Mm-hmm. But I mean, that's not to scare you, because so many people are connected to themselves in such a minimal way until they find spirituality, or have a spiritual awakening, or find some kind of technique that helps to teach them to go within, like meditation, or
Yeah.
just breathing techniques, or walking in nature, like just trying to find moments of connecting with yourself. So
Right. So some of the other signs of spiritual awakening, what you'll notice is that once you have this spiritual awakening and you start to see things differently, is that actually your relationships will start shifting, and
what, really?
yeah, like unfortunately you might
They
lose
do.
some relationships because I guess you start perceiving things differently, and people might perceive you differently, and maybe you just don't connect anymore. And
It is a perception shift. Like spiritual awakening really is a perception shift.
Yeah, and I think because you can also start seeing people more fully too, and maybe you just start realizing that maybe you're not as connected as
Well,
you
and I
thought you
think
were.
you also start to really read if people are authentic or not, or if they're manipulating you or playing games, or and you start to really notice when people are doing that, and you start
But you
to
don't
see,
get mad. You don't get mad
no,
about
but you
it.
decide you don't really want to do that anymore. Like you don't want to participate in those kind of types of relationships. And
No,
so,
again, this doesn't happen overnight. You guys, like
no,
it does.
spiritual awakening.
It really doesn't.
I mean, spiritual
No, like
awakening,
the compassion for people and
No,
like finding the inner peace, and that takes a lot, you guys.
But the trigger of spiritual awakening could be an instantaneous thing. It could be from like a major life change, like a divorce or a car accident, or the death of a loved one, or a near-death experience even can be a spiritual awakening,
or even a bad childhood.
Or it could be like my sister and I, we had a lot of years of depression, and I think that really triggered our spiritual awakening. And I say it was depression, but in hindsight, we now say it was more of a spiritual depression, because
it was.
we could tell we were disconnected, but we didn't have the tools to reconnect to ourselves, and it really put us into a space of feeling lost and almost like desperate. To know the truth
Desperate
of who am I.
Yeah, like somehow we just knew that there was an answer, but
we didn't really.
That's
true.
It's very bizarre, but we didn't really. And you're gonna find that too, you guys, is that like your spiritual awakening is, even though like Cheryl and Christine think they decided to have the spiritual awakening, there's actually a higher part of you that has decided that you're having a spiritual awakening, and we're actually, you'll find, just along for the ride.
Well, and I think that kind of lends to letting go of control too. Like spiritual awakening really is about letting go of control of the human kind of driving, I guess, the car.
Yeah, that's tough.
It's like you have to let that kind of higher knowing, or the higher piece of you. But like you said, I always felt like connected to a higher piece of myself. And as my sister mentioned, we did come from a bit of a rough childhood. Like, we weren't close with our parents. There was a lot of yelling, and it just a lot of control from at least one of our parents. And it was a tough environment to grow up in. But I do think like that.
It propelled us.
Well, the knowledge or the ability, even as a young kid, to feel connected to something more than Christine. Like
saved us.
Yeah, I remember.
It did save
I
us.
remember being in my room. It couldn't have been more than grade maybe 6 or 7, and I remember crying about our parents and the divorce and the difficulties of childhood, and thinking what am I going to do? And so I'm crying and sobbing, and then I remember getting to a point where I stopped, and I felt, this isn't really what I'm upset about. Like, I'm not upset about, it's not really about my parents. It's not really about school or, boys or anything. I just felt this deep longing to be connected. It was about feeling disconnected from myself. And I remember feeling that as a very young kid. So I don't know if you had that, or if I just remember it stuck out with me. It was like it was yesterday, the experience. It was profound.
But the good thing is, you guys, is that once you have this spiritual awakening, is that the path is almost laid out before you. And what happens is, you'll notice is that whoever your teacher is going to be, the most perfect person for you to kind of teach you what you need to know at that time, they're going to appear. Yeah. So, that happened for my sister multiple times. Like, it happened for us over and over.
We were blessed. We've had so many good teachers, very good. Like over the 30, 40 years we've been moving through our spiritual awakening.
We couldn't have done it without them, for sure.
No. And like we've been lucky, even just locally, like in your own town and stuff. We found a lot of teachers locally, and a couple groups online. And
we didn't, like, the internet wasn't huge when we
had that,
not to date ourselves.
Dial up.
Oh yeah, like,
and then the busy signal, and you couldn't get on. Like, yeah,
it was annoying.
We are dinosaurs, literally.
Yeah, like
at this point,
you are very lucky to be awakening during this time. In a sense, you're lucky. I mean, we kind of had it. There's so much information out there that's almost a problem at this point, because like you really got to dig through the truth out there.
You do, but hey, if you become more intuitive, which is a part of your spiritual awakening, you can intuit what information resonates with you, like what feels truthful to you.
Yeah,
it's not what other people are saying even what we're saying, if you don't resonate with it, it's not your truth. It's about, it's not about our truth. It's about what is your truth and what feels good to you and what feels like it's going to help connect you to what you've been longing for.
Right. And that's what we really learned along the way, is that there were some teachers that we had to walk away from because it just didn't resonate. And like when we say like resonate or feels clear, like you almost just get like a, not almost
sense
like a
of knowing.
warm feeling, like, you know,
maybe.
a knowingness that this person is the right person for you at that moment. Right. But then like in the end, what happens is that you're almost helping the mind understand spiritual awakening in a sense. And then the mind kind of relaxes a little, right?
Yeah.
And then eventually you clear away enough so that you can go within and find the answers there, because really your answers come from you, not from anybody else, not from me and my sister, not from any teacher.
They might be deep within, and they might seem like they're hidden.
Yeah, but they're there.
They're there.
We promise.
We promise you
they're there. You're going to have to dig.
No.
You're going to have to dig hard.
Oh, no. I think when you're ready for the truth, I think the truth shoves up from within you and you can't stop it. It's
Don't
like
resist. Don't resist the
it's
truth,
like
you guys.
volcano.
It's coming.
No. Yeah.
Don't resist.
And it's like you said, I do believe, like, if you've signed up for awakening in this lifetime, and I say this lifetime because we do believe in past lives and other very interesting things.
Yes, you'll
interesting
find
things.
out.
But that resonates with us. That seems really truthful. And it just, to us, there has to be more.
Yeah.
More to this one life and more
and
to
you'll
our
find
experiences.
once you awaken that spirituality rules your life. It literally,
it really
it rules. It takes over.
It does take over, not in a bad way, but in a way that this just seems so important to me now.
And truthful.
It seems more important than anything. Making money and your
relationships
job and having nice things to wear. I mean, not that we don't get done up and like look personable or act personable, and
everything holds a different meaning.
It really does. It's not the internal drive for success or money or whatever. It's just not there the same way it used to be. But I mean, we really did think when we were in our teens, that happiness came from a good relationship and getting married and having a lot of money or traveling, which I'm pretty sure traveling still.
Yeah,
I'm gonna still stick
you'll
with
come
that
to
one,
see you'll come to see that that doesn't hold the value that it does. I mean, of course we're here to enjoy our life, right? But you kind of let all that go, and then you come back to the truth within yourself, and then you go out and experience life in a different way.
No, you re-experience it through a more spiritually awakened consciousness. Like you're living consciously, and what that really means is just like you can live in each moment without worrying about the next, without worrying about what your partner thinks of you, or how much money you have in the bank. You're not seeing your experiences and through that lens, which actually just makes you miss every experience. Like you're not fully experiencing anything then.
Do you want to, before we're because we're running out a bit of a time, do you want to share your story of awakening and I'll share mine?
Yeah, I think you and I talked about this before we did the podcast, and I think you feel like you kind of had more of a like a moment in time, but for me, it really has stuck with me my entire life of just this longing to know a truth, even though when I was younger, I may not have known what that really meant. But as I got older, at maybe early university years, 18 to 23 or something, I really started to feel kind of out of place. Like we would go, we were very personable. We were on the gymnastics team. We traveled. We
had tons of friends.
Yeah, we had a lot of friends, but like I would go to these parties, I'd go to these places, and I know both of us felt very out of place. Like we just,
and alone, even though we had a million people around us,
and we just didn't feel, we didn't feel like we were in the right place. We didn't feel like we fit in. And no one would have really known that. But for us, I think it was just this deep sense of disconnect from ourselves. And here we are trying to experience life, through this external connection to things, when really all we really wanted was the internal. And so for me, I think part of it was when we were pretty young, I would start to see 11:11 everywhere. And when we were kids, like, or young adults, this wasn't in the news. This wasn't on social media. Like now you literally see 11:11 everywhere. But I know my sister and I, we kept diaries when we were younger, and I literally thought I would write, it's 11:11 again. I'm like, I always thought, what does this mean? I'm like, am I going to die or something at 11:11? Like it was so profound that I saw it all over the place. But if
But
you
then
don't,
we did find a book on the 11:11.
Yeah,
we were like,
was,
oh my God, this exists. This is a thing.
Sanaya Roman. It's actually this kind of call to spiritual awakening is this 11:11. So, but
It doesn't mean that
like
you're meeting a soulmate.
No, that was like grade 4 or 5. Like we were young.
Yeah, we were young. Yeah, we were.
Yeah, we were. So, I mean, like I said, this, for me, I feel like it's been my entire life that I've been spiritually awakening, probably when we were born, seriously. But our whole, for me, like we're close to 50 now, don't tell anyone. But we literally have spent most of our life focused on spirituality and spiritual awakening. And I don't regret it.
No, well, it's been challenging.
It has been challenging, but
I don't regret one moment.
I don't regret it either, because the peace and the contentment and just the level of consciousness that we now,
and the connection and the truth that we,
the connection to ourselves. Like I don't feel that emptiness anymore. I don't feel a sadness. We're not depressed.
And that makes everything better in life.
It does.
Every experience
all your relationships
is more full.
Your job.
Like, and if you lose a relationship, it doesn't matter as much, because you have a connection to yourself that will never be lost. So it doesn't come from anybody else.
Yeah, it is.
That's where the peace comes from, you guys, is that you finally understand that you are like your own happiness and your own love, and you don't need it from external sources. And that's where the inner peace comes after spiritual awakening, and once you do your process, right? Because like I said, spiritual awakening isn't just one moment in time. It's a process of spiritual awakening, and then you go through the very challenging
lifetimes of a process.
And then people say you have the awakening, and like I see people who originally had their awakening, and there's a lot of people awakening now because of COVID, right? Like COVID
forced people to go
forcing
within.
people to go within. So they have this like, and we did this too. Like when we first had our spiritual awakening, we were like so elated that we found something that
this
resonated.
This is it. We knew it. Yeah.
You know, like, so we did a lot of new age stuff, but then comes what they call the dark night of the soul. I mean, I don't know if I've ever called it that, but it's very challenging because
it's like the pit of despair of the soul.
Beyond despair, you guys, because you're digging like so layer deep, upon layer of all your crap, and all your wounds and all your old patterns are in there, and you gotta go wade through them.
But the good news is that you're not any of that stuff. You're not your crap. You're not your unworthiness. You're not your guilt. You're not anything negative. You know, you're actually a spiritual
divine
being. And when you connect with that piece of yourself, that's the part of beingness that always exists. Like the rest of that stuff really it doesn't really even exist. It's kind of like this false mask that we all wear as we go through life. You know, we wear the mask of unworthiness, we wear the mask of guilt, we wear the mask of, you know, just not feeling valued, or whatever those masks we wear. But like what is underneath all that those masks is really what spiritual awakening is.
And you find the answer.
I'm going to let my sister finish her story about spiritual awakening, because I think I hogged
you're
there,
hogging, and the time's almost up. No, okay, I'll just tell you guys quickly, because it's interesting to learn people's personal stories. But for me, like she said, like we always knew there was something. I had some drive in me saying there's more, but mine, like for me, that sticks out in my head is when I was about 20, I got into an accident doing gymnastics and had to have surgery, and I was at home, and like I was in a lot of despair. I lost gymnastics, which was a big part of my identity, and you know, at the time I had a great boyfriend, I had wonderful friends, but I was so in despair and so lonely. And I'm like, what?
And she had me. What the hell?
Yeah, like I had my family,
Thank God we
I was
had
like,
each other,
what's
by the
going on? But like for me, I think that accident was something I created so that I would slow down and
sit still
and start kind of like opening up to like what my path was. And at the time, our dad had he was into new age stuff and had a lot of books lying around the house, and that was actually when I read my first spiritual book called The Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield. It's a great book, you guys. Like if you want to go read it.
Well, it's considered mainstream now. Like I know we've also read of a lot of other books that aren't considered mainstream, but I mean, I think the Celestine Prophecy, and then I think he also had a lot of books on someone called a being called Cryon, which are some channeled books, which we can get into later. But
yeah, so that was
really
when
interesting.
I like took the time and I forced myself in some kind of manifestation, like not Cheryl, but a higher part of me, I think, manifested that accident so that I would sit still
for sure.
and start reading and learning. And that's when, we found another website called the Crimson Circle, and we've worked with them for the last 20 years. But again, like, I don't want to, tell you who to follow or, who you resonate with. But for us, I think you just have to find what's truthful for you. And for us, like when I was in that quiet time, I found information and groups that would help me for the rest of my life.
Well, we must have read hundreds of books.
Hundreds.
Between the two of us.
But
hundreds.
read, you guys. Like, there's so much out there, and now the internet, like, and just listening to these podcasts and like what we have to say, and
but find what resonates with you. Always, I think this is one of the most important things where I want to drive home to people is always make your own decisions. If somebody tells you that their truth is the only truth or it's the only way to get somewhere, walk away and make sure that your
even
truth.
what we say, like, you don't have to listen to it.
Yes, they do. What are you talking about?
Yeah, you don't have to. But I mean, if it resonates,
we're delightful. Hello.
If it resonates with you, then stick around. Like, we have lots to share. We've got decades of information,
a lot of stories,
from
stories.
Our spiritual process that you guys are going to learn from. Like, I wish somebody did this for us back then.
I know. And like we said, we only had that kind of new age group. Thank goodness for the Crimson Circle. I want to say they're kind of new age, but I guess
different. But
they're different.
We'll talk about them another time if anybody's interested in watching that podcast. But so for us, I guess spiritual awakening was the best thing that ever happened to us, and maybe the worst thing. Because our lives have been
but at least we
different.
Can laugh about it.
We can laugh. You need humor.
We say it's the worst because
with spiritual awakening.
Because there is just some really, really challenging pieces. Yeah. But again, I reiterate, I would not change a thing because
never go back. Never. We were miserable.
Yeah, to be connected to the truth of who you are. Yeah. It transcends everything else. And life just gets peaceful. Like so many people we know.
Oh my God. People come to my house and they don't want to leave.
I know.
Like, your house
why
is
it so peaceful? In fact, I was just with somebody last night and he said, your house is so different than mine. And I'm like, what do you mean it's different? But
because then your energy resonates with your space.
He meant peaceful. And he's like, well, I don't know. It's like less cluttered or something. He couldn't put the words to it. But really, it's because it's peaceful. And
but you have that to look forward to.
More peace.
And
what else do they have to look forward to?
Peace, I think.
Yeah, peace is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
But
well, love,
knowing yourself.
Yeah, and just self-love.
No doubt.
Self-love so that you don't have to go to anyone else for love.
Yes, right? That's huge. That's huge. How many of us go outside of ourselves and think, oh, this soulmate's gonna, fix everything and make everything better. And I'm sorry, but that's just a load of crap because it might work for a month or two.
Tell them how it really is.
Yeah, I know.
Christine.
Okay, I'll tell them.
Yeah.
But inevitably what happens is everybody's doubts and fears rise to the surface, whether they're yours or your partner's, they all come up.
That's a whole other podcast.
It is. And I think we'll
talk about that another time
to do a podcast on don't go outside of yourself.
I think we got to wrap this one up. But anyway, you know what? You guys, congratulations on your spiritual awakening, because if you're here, I guarantee you have awakened spiritually, or you wouldn't have found us. You wouldn't have even have clicked on this podcast to listen to it. So, we welcome you, and
buckle up, people.
We're honored to share our truth so that we can inspire yours. So, come back, listen to us again. We plan on doing a series, just to show our awakening to where we are now. So, we'll see how those plan out. We see how those go, but it's going to be interesting, you guys. So if you're here now, I think you're going to really love what we have to say in our next podcast. So, we should be signing off now. And
for sure. We need a sign off. We never even thought of sign off. Like,
you guys, what should we do for a sign off?
I don't know. Like somehow, maybe something like take care, go within. I don't know.
Take care, go within.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys.
Yeah.
Yep.
Take care,
should
go
we say
within.
it together?
Yeah.
Okay. Take care, go within.
See you next
guys
time.
soon. Bye.